You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode number 210.2. Can you believe we're already at 210?
Oh, man.
Our semi-state previews and predictions with Michelle Garmon and Grant Shouse. Every single one of them.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Michelle Garmon and I are at stage 22. We're joined on the phone by Grant Shouse. It's the exact opposite of last week when we did the regional round last week. Now we're going to go semi-state by semi-state. We're going to do a little bit of a preview. Then we're all going to pick each game and who we think is going to win the semi-state. You guys ready?
Yep.
We start Class 4A in the North Semi-State at Elkhart at Northside Gym. Either one of you ever been there?
I have not.
I've been there.
Oh, yeah? How's it rate?
I saw Northwood win the 3A semi-state there 2 years ago, and I saw Culver Academy with a senior, a high school senior, Trey Galloway beat
That's right.
Mary.
Oh, beat Mary.
Semi-state, yeah. That was it. It's a cool gym, but it's not my favorite, but it gets the job done.
I hear you. At 10 a.m. in the first semi-state at Northside Gym, it's number 1 Fishers against number 11 South Bend Riley. Fishers, of course, 28-0, defending 4A state champion, 41 straight wins, blah, blah, blah. They beat Harrison 89-39 in the regional last week. South Bend Riley, a completely different story in the regional. They are 22-4. They beat number 9 Warsaw in double overtime. Tyrese Jones, 45 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals in the victory. Their last semi-state championship, by the way, 1945. And my prediction is Fishers by 17.
Yeah, Greg, you look at this matchup with Riley. These two teams actually have played this season.
Yeah.
And it's one South Bend Riley would probably like to forget. It was not probably, I know for sure they'd like to forget. As Fishers won 89-29.
I remember that. Crazy.
Back on January 18th. I don't think it'll be that one-sided this time, with it just being a tournament game, and there's going to be more juice in there. There's going to be more juice, I think, from both teams. But I'm going to back you up on your 17-point win from Fishers. I'm going to take Fishers by 22 to beat South Bend Riley and punch their ticket to the championship game that night.
Well, I will agree. It's Fishers and by double digits. I know they're a really deep team. I think if
really deep.
But I also think that if they're winning pretty big, I can see him going ahead and, because they do have so much depth, pulling some of the top guys to save legs for if they need them in the evening game. So I think it'll be double digits, and I do think it's going to be closer. I think it might be closer to Grant's double digits than yours, but right around 20. But I do think it will be double digits. I just think we've said it all year. Fishers is definitely the team to beat in the North, and the North 4A North semi-state. It's not as daunting as the South.
Yeah, and they're definitely the team to beat in the entire state, I think.
I do want to add this, Greg, is that Fishers has Millen McCartney, who's going to Indiana West Stand, who averages 9 points a game. Cooper Zachary, 11 points a game. Jason Gardner, 14 a game. Justin Kirby, 12 a game. John Anthony Hall going to play football at Stanford, 10 points a game. Then Nathan Baker averages 7 points a game. You get that kind of production, that bounds the scoring throughout your entire roster. It's no wonder this team is averaging 74 points a game. It's unbelievable. Look at the scores that they put up. 91 against Indianapolis Tech, 77 against Mount Vernon, 70 against Attucks, 93 against Shortridge. You go all the way down. They have not lost the game, and it's because they can score the basketball at will. And I'm not sure anyone else besides maybe Jeffersonville has the horses to hang with them.
But even Jeffersonville doesn't have 7 different guys capable of leading the team in scoring on a certain night. Jeffersonville might have the best trio in the state, and that's why they have a chance against Fishers. But I don't think they can. They definitely can't go as deep as the Tigers. Number 7, Crown Point takes on number 15, Homestead in the second game that will follow Fishers. It says noon, but who knows what time it'll actually start. Crown Point is 22-2. They've won 9 games in a row. They beat Portage in the regional, one of the 2 teams to beat them in the regular season, 68-62 in overtime to win back-to-back regional championships. The Bulldogs have never won a semi-state. Number 15, Homestead, is 22-5, and I know you guys were not impressed. They've won 16 games in a row, including a 42-39 win over Carroll in the regional. The only semi-state championship ever for Homestead was 2015. They won the state championship that year. My pick is Crown Point by 7.
I got to agree with you here is that Crown Point is, I think, by far the better team. Both teams are very well coached. Clinton Swan in his 19th year there at Crown Point, over 400 career wins. They have a really good player and a guy named Dikembe Shaw, who's kind of I guess what you would call a combo guard a little bit. And
came up big in the regional too.
Yeah, he can score the basketball, and he's part of the reason why they won that regional against Portage. So I'm going to take Crown Point to beat Homestead. I know Homestead has some size, but I just think Crown Point is more athletic, and I think they can just make better plays because they want to get out and score the ball. They average 60 a game, while Homestead averages, Crown Point averages 68 a game. Homestead averages about 58 a game, and Michelle will probably hammer on this because we talked about it the other night, but they only scored 42 points in the regional game against Carroll. So I think if Crown Point comes out firing, I really like Crown Point to go back to the semi-state championship game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Crown Point. I was so unimpressed with Homestead. I mean, I know that, and maybe it was just a bad day for them because I know that can happen. They just did not impress me, and I think Crown Point, and I think it'll be by more than 7. I think it will be double digits. I just do. I mean, the sad part is Carroll. They missed some bunnies, and they just
both those teams have beaten good teams in the postseason, though.
I know, but
sometimes matchups make ugly games.
I know, but they didn't have what I just was unimpressed. And I will tell you what, this will be an advantage because I do think Crown Point travels better. I think they'll have more fans. Homestead doesn't have very many fans. I mean, that game Saturday, that second game, that 4A game on Saturday, regional game, had half. If maybe they're lucky to have half the fans that were there for the 2A semi-state. And I was told by people, by Logansport officials and by Dean Hockney and everything that Homestead, those Fort Wayne schools, if they're outside the area of Fort Wayne, unless maybe they go to the state finals, they don't travel well. And, that can be a thing. Don't you think, Grant? I think crowds can play in it again, help teams have energy.
You hear that, Homestead? Michelle's calling you out. And I am taking Fishers to win the semi-state. Anybody disagree?
No. I don't. I think it's a no-brainer, and we said it the entire tournament. We said it before the tournament, and we probably said it back in November, December, January, and February that they are by far the best team in the state. I think all classes, and so it's a no-brainer. They're going to come out of the north side of the state.
And by the way, we'll be saying it in April, May, June, July, August, September, next year too.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a team that if they win the state championship again this year, and I think they will, no matter who they match up with, they could very well go for a three-peat.
Yes, probably should.
I think they're poised for one of the best dynasties of all time.
And then they'll be playing in Class 5A.
I know. They're going to invent it for them.
That's right. The 4A South Semi-State will be played at Newcastle, and it starts at 10 a.m. with number 10 Lawrence North against Terre Haute North. Lawrence North is 22-6. They have won 5 semi-state champions, the last one in 2006 with Greg Oden and Mike Conley. Terre Haute North is 22-5. They won their first regional since 1999, coming back from 15 points with less than 3 minutes to go to force overtime and win that game. Magical run for North, but it's going to end Lawrence North by 15, Grant.
Yeah, I actually want to correct you here on something. Lawrence North went to the state championship in 2021, where they lost to Carmel in overtime. That was a really talented team.
That was
I make some mistakes.
That
sometimes.
was the Brian Waddell versus C.J. Gunn, and Waddell outplayed him, and that was the game I knew that I should say that's the game I questioned why IU recruited C.J. Gunn.
Yeah, well, considering who the coach was at the time there at Indiana, it did not shock me that's what they went with. But that's a whole other podcast we do on here.
Yes.
Lawrence North this year, though, is, Fishers, I think, is the most skilled team. I think they have the best guards. But Lawrence North, by far, is probably the most athletic team I've seen this year. Jeffersonville is right there as well, too. But I think Lawrence North is just a little more athletic. Those dudes they have can jump out of the gym. They actually have Lawrence North's all-time leading scorer in Xavier Robinson, goes by Stink Robinson. And just what a great player he is. Going to Butler, he's going to be an Indiana All-Star, if not a Mr. Basketball candidate. I know he's probably not the front runner with Braylon Mullins, but he is in the Indy market, so they will give him a look, and they will kind of look at his resume for it, and he certainly checks off a lot of boxes. Lawrence North's 21-6 this year, and kind of the only hiccups they've had, you got to go back into mid to late February, lost at Ben Davis 67-64, and then lost to Fishers 75-59 at home. They've only lost 2 games in a row. One time this year, had a 4-point loss in overtime to Warren Central. Actually lost to Ben Davis twice. I saw them against Marion back on January the 3rd, and just the dudes they have, a guy by the name of Jamar Thomas, like we mentioned with Xavier Robinson,
loaded.
Ty McGrew, Brennan Miller. These guys are huge. They're strong. They can jump. They can score. I'm going to take Lawrence North by 17 as well, Greg, over Terre Haute North.
Here's the thing. I don't know if you follow, if either one of you follow Rick Simler on Twitter.
I do. Yep.
Terre Haute North has that unique story about the player and visiting the grave. I think it's his dad, whatever. And, sometimes stories like that are good. And, sometimes you have other things that just can carry you and make you better. A team, you catch a mojo. And
if you play inspired, you know what I mean?
Yes, and I think they have that. I do think they get beat by Lawrence North, but I think it could inspire them to play Lawrence North maybe tougher than people might expect, at least for a half or more. I mean, I think that kind of inspiration can possibly make that game just a little bit closer. But Lawrence North just has They just have too many horses.
It can make a difference if you're not completely outmatched. They will be completely outmatched in this game.
Greg, real quick before we go on, are you paying attention to this Pacers game?
I just saw it.
Got a steal and then hit a 3 to take the lead.
Okay, which 3? Here's the thing. I said this the other day as
it's crazy
because you had Halliburton's 3 and then you had Toppin on against Minnesota and that crazy thing. And I said these things come in 3s. I said who's going to be the third Pacer to nail that type of 3-point shot?
Crazy, and they were down pretty big late. All right, let's get back to the picks. In the second game, approximately noon, it'll be number 16 Mount Vernon, the Giant Slayer, taking down number 5 Anderson. They've taken down number 2 Greenfield Central. They took down Brownsburg, which isn't a Giant this year, but typically is, by 34 points for their 4th regional championship ever on Saturday. They've never won a semi-state, which surprised me a little bit. They are 22-5. Jeffersonville also 22-5. In fact, every single team in this semi-state has 22 wins. Jeffersonville's won 15 straight games since they got healthy. They've won 6 semi-state championships in program history. The last one was 1995, back in the day when they had 6 Division I players on their varsity basketball team. And this
a guy by the name of Mike Broughton as the head coach.
That's right. And I think this one's going to be a classic. By the way, Luke Ertl for Mount Vernon. Speaking of Mr. Basketball candidates, of course, that'll be next year. And I'm going to take Jeff by 4, but I'm very uncertain about it.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Greg. I saw Jeffersonville against Columbus East back in January. Columbus East, not as nearly as a talented team as Jeffersonville, but Jeffersonville actually had to play their best game to win, and they somehow came out on top. But since then, they played really good basketball there since, mid to late January. They haven't lost since January 4th when they played at Lawrence North. They're riding that win streak coming in here, and I think it's going to be, like you said, a classic. But I like Jeffersonville to come out on top by 2 over Mount Vernon. However, I would not be at all shocked if Mount Vernon doesn't win that game because they're so quick.
Of course, yeah.
They get out, they press. You mentioned Luke Ertl's a really good player. That Mount Vernon team is such a sleeper. They're a problem. Now, if they win against Jeffersonville, I'm going to take Jeffersonville, but if they do come out on top against the Red Devils, I like Lawrence North to win the whole thing, but don't count out Mount Vernon to give every team in this semi-state, no matter, whatever the matchup is, don't count them out to give these other teams a run for their money.
I like this Mount Vernon team because I like Luke Ertl. I think he's, lefty. From what I've seen, I think he's really good. However, I think a full, healthy Jeffersonville team is not even a full notch below Harrison. I might say there might be a quarter of an inch that would separate, not Harrison, but Fishers, that separates them. I like Jeffersonville in this game.
They played the summer, and Jeffersonville beat them when they were healthy.
Yeah, I know. And I think Jeffersonville has got enough studs, and I think that they're disappointed with the injuries and some of the season. I like Jeffersonville, and to be honest, I like them by more than 4. So I like Jeffersonville coming out in that second game. I would not. Now, granted, anything can happen with a player like Luke Ertl. If Mount Vernon wins, am I going to be shocked? No. I'd be more shocked if Fishers got beat in the first round of their semi-state game.
Way more.
But at the same time, I see Jeffersonville winning this. I think next to
the
Fishers,
whole thing. You think that you have them winning the semi-state?
I do. I haven't even beaten Lawrence North.
Me too.
I really believe there are 2 teams on a top level, and that are it's Fishers and Jeffersonville. And I think everybody else is kind of below, and they can fight, different things. But I think they're on the same level. So I think if they're healthy and everything else,
they're healthy now.
They are, and I like Jeffersonville, and I like them to win that semi-state. I like a repeat of last year's state finals between.
No, last year was Ben Davis.
Ben Davis, that's right.
Ben Davis beat Jeffersonville in overtime, yeah.
Right. Okay, but I like the fact, because I think after that, everybody thought it would be Fishers and Jeffersonville this year. That's where I'm confused. I'm so sorry, folks. Try not to.
They came into the season number 1 and number 2.
I'm gonna say that's my age. That I forgot that last. A little bit to do with my age. I do, and I think they are. I know Kyle Nedrip earlier said who should be number 2 on his ballot ranking, and Jeffersonville was finally fully healthy, and I said Jeffersonville. They didn't. Somebody put Westville. I said a fully healthy Jeffersonville team. As far as I'm concerned, there's no doubt Fishers and Jeffersonville are at the top of, and then the other teams can battle for positions 3 on down. But those two, I think, are the cream of the crop in 4A.
Yeah, I got to back you up on that one. I'm going to go with Jeffersonville to win that one too. I like them coming out of the South, and it kind of sets up that dream matchup with them and Fishers. Is like Greg, I think, alluded to, Fishers and Jeffersonville played each other multiple times throughout the summer. I saw them play each other multiple times throughout the summer, and it was, those games were incredible. But granted, it's the summer; things are different. You're missing some of your kids. They may not be there. They're maybe not giving maximum effort. But if they were to match up at a state championship game, that's just different. But like you guys said, I like Jeffersonville to beat Lawrence North in the semi-state championship, but that will be a heck of a basketball game there at Newcastle Fieldhouse. And I want to mention this, is that on Saturday night there at Newcastle, it doesn't matter if it's even Terre Haute North and Mount Vernon, but especially if it's Jeffersonville and Lawrence North, or Mount Vernon and Lawrence North, of course, there's going to be every bit of 7,000 to 8,000, almost 9,000 people in that arena for that game Saturday night for a chance to go to the state championship. That's what makes this tournament so special.
The entire town of Jeffersonville.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Grant. And here's my thing. I think if it's Fishers and Jeffersonville in the state championship, I think Gamebridge may be sold out, even though the NC2A tournament will be going on, because I think there will be basketball fans, especially since you have to pay
Lawrence
for the
North too, though.
But I really think with Jeffersonville, because I think Jeffersonville will bring them up, but I think because they don't stream. I mean, you have to pay for streaming now. So if I'm gonna have to pay, if I have an opportunity to go, why not go watch it live? If I'm gonna have to pay to stream it, I might as well go take my phone or my iPad with me down to the field house, watch them, and watch whatever NC2A game is on. Now, the only thing that might prevent a sellout would be if Purdue might be playing that night in the NC2A tournament, but.
Let us move on to the Class 3A North Semi-State, which is played at the Berry Bowl in Logansport, a site that you guys are familiar with, just there last weekend. It starts at 10 a.m. with 22-5 Mechaniqua against 25-3 in second rank and defending semi-state champion South Bend St. Joseph. Mechaniqua has won its second regional ever on Saturday, beating Marion 78-72. And South Bend St. Joseph is 25-3. They beat Columbia City 50-46 to win back-to-back regionals, third time in 5 years, and seventh overall. They were the 2024 3A state champions, and my pick is St. Joe by 3.
Hey, I think I picked against St. Joe at the region against Mechaniqua. I picked against Mechaniqua, but I had St. Joe beating Columbia City.
Yes, you did, but I said it was going to be close, and you said it wasn't.
So, well, I probably shouldn't have been then. So if
Columbia City led in the fourth quarter.
I know. But here's the thing. I'm going to agree with you. I think it will be St. Joe. Although maybe Mechaniqua will.
Over the years, and we talked about it. We talked about it here the last couple of weeks. Is Mechaniqua and John Burris know how to win games, and me and Kevin Helfberg have given Coach Burris the nickname Big Game Burris because. Somehow his teams, whether it was clear back at Southwood or at Mechaniqua, they know how to win big games. And honestly, I was shocked that they beat Marion. I was, because I picked Marion. I just thought Marion was a little more.
I'm with you, Grant.
Was a little more battle tested than Mechaniqua was. Mechaniqua played an okay schedule, but nobody played a tougher schedule in the entire state than Marion. So.
Yep. What I said was Mechaniqua had the best two players. Turned out to be true, I think. And
I 100% agree. Thing is I think they're going to run into a better team than Marion.
Yes.
On Saturday in South Bend St. Joe, they have Chase Knesny, whose brother plays at Notre Dame. They have Nick Shrewsbury, who's the son of Micah Shrewsbury. They're really well coached. A guy named Eric Gaff, 68-39 in 4 years there. He only lost 3 times this year. Lost to Zionsville, lost to Mishawaka Penn by 4, and then lost to Chicago Mount Carmel out of Illinois back in February. They pretty much run through their schedule like a chainsaw through butter. But my thing is what's concerning is Culver Academy gave them a good game in the sectional championship. Columbia City, who I didn't even think would get out of their sectional, 17-10, did get out of their sectional. Gave them a game, had the lead in the fourth quarter, and South Bend St. Joe won by 4. So, with McConaughey and the 2 players they have and these other guys that contribute, A.J. Kelly, Josiah Ball, the kind of the dynamic duo, but then you have Buddy Kyle, Devin Murray, Landon Adams.
Devin Murray's been really good lately.
Yeah, they're clicking. So I don't know who I'd pick, but I think just for the sake of it, I'm going to pick McConaughey to upset South Bend St. Joe. How about that?
Love it. Delta is 18-7, takes on 21-8 East Chicago Central. First of all, I need to say that last week I kind of just overlooked Delta completely. I never even mentioned that I thought they had a chance to win. I didn't think they had a chance to win.
I didn't either.
And I was just wrong. I guess Mark Detweiler's better than I thought.
I saw.
I don't know much about him, but woo.
I saw a tweet and somebody said, "Boy, Mark Detweiler, obviously he can coach."
Obviously. They are 18-7. They won their 3rd straight regional championship. They've lost in the semi-state championship the last 2 years, including to St. Joe in 3 overtimes in 2023. East Chicago Central is 21-8. They won their 6th regional title Saturday, 78-55 over Hanover Central. Their only semi-state title came in their state championship season of 2007 with Etwan Moore and Kwan Short, who ended up playing for the Carolina Panthers. And, of course, that game will follow McConaughey, South Bend, St. Joseph. And I'm just going to completely discount Delta again, and I haven't learned my lesson at all. I'm going to take the Cardinals by 13.
Well, I'm going to agree with you that it's going to be East Chicago Central, and I think it could be by double figures. I agreed with you last week. I didn't give Delta much of a chance, or really a chance at all.
Never crossed my mind they had a chance.
And I will say this, I really don't know a lot about East Chicago Central, but I know, though, maybe they haven't had success here recently. They're a program that has had really good teams in the past, and so I think they're a program that when they have a good group of guys,
they've had a lot of sectional championships recently.
They just know how to win. I wouldn't be surprised, and I just kind of like it. I think sometimes it's nice to see comebacks from past programs, like with the girls, Warsaw going like that. I just think it's really neat to see, and so I like East Chicago. I do like East Chicago to beat Delta. And I like East Chicago to win the whole thing, that whole semi-state.
I agree with you, Michelle and Greg. I'm going to pick East Chicago Central to come out of this. They have a great player and a guy named Dominique Murphy, who's kind of a 6'6" stretch, very athletic, get to the basket. They're really good. And look at this schedule that they played that I think going to play a factor in the long run of the tournament. Play teams like Crispus Attucks, Crown Point, Homestead, Zionsville, Penn, Carroll, Cathedral. They played some good teams.
They play a top 4A schedule as a 3A top 4A schedule as a 3A team.
Yeah, and no one
like Marion.
Really well. Them and Marion have probably played the 2 toughest schedules in 3A.
Yeah.
But with East Chicago, nobody has really challenged them yet in their tournament. Gary West is kind of the only team that's given them problems, and East Chicago Central still won by 11, 64-53 in the sectional title game. So I like East Chicago to come out of that game against Delta, and I'll take East Chicago to represent the north half of 3A in the state finals.
All by myself. I'm the only one taking South Bend St. Joseph, so I'm picking them to repeat as champions, and I never even thought it was that close of a call. So I'm surprised that you two. I mean, I think it's a close call with Mechaniqua. I don't think the championship game. I thought whoever wins that first one will be the champion, but
Well, I think East Chicago Central is better than Mechaniqua, so.
okay. I didn't think so, but apparently I'm all by myself. This Class 3A South Semi-State will be played at the beautiful Southport Fieldhouse, and it starts at 10 a.m., and it is a doozy. Number 3, New Pal against number 4 and defending 2A state champion. I guess they're not defending. Reigning 2A state champion Brownstown Central. New Pal's 26-3. They beat Garin Catholic 63-49. That's 5th ranked Garin Catholic for their first semi-state championship ever. And then Brownstown Central, not their first one ever. They're 25-2. They won their 5th regional title by beating Evansville Memorial 55-48. Their 3rd straight regional championship. I'm taking New Pal by 8. I'm a believer.
Well, I'm a believer in New Pal too, especially with Gizzy, Gizzy, however you say that or pronounce that. I like it. I've heard it said
Geezy.
Both ways, pronounced both ways. So I like New Pal in that first one. I just think that they another one that's got a good beat going on to them, and they just kind of fed off. I mean, and they're feeding off. They had a great football. I mean, the football state championship. Now they're going over. So I like them to win that first game, and I like your point spread. It might even be a little bit more. It all depends, but I do think New Pal's coming out of that game.
I'm probably going to be wrong on this, but I'm going to take Brownstown Central to upset New Pal.
Dave Benner knows how to win, doesn't he?
He does. He's a phenomenal coach, and Brownstown has played in the semi-state there at Southport 3 years in a row now, even going back to 2A 2 years ago, and then last year when they won the 2A state title game. This is a Brownstown team that has played a, I guess, favorable, you would say, schedule, especially kind of the back half of their schedule. Lost to Jeffersonville back on February 20th, 61-43. Lost to New Albany, 66-61. But still, with the guys that they have, I'm honestly a little surprised that they were, that they had this kind of a season after graduating a lot of guys from last year and graduating.
Jack Benter.
Jack Benter. I don't know why it kind of escaped my mind, but Brownstown, I think, is just a more poised team. I think they're a more experienced team at that level, and they are especially really well coached. And Dave Benner, who just won recently his 500th career game in 27 years at Brownstown. I'll take them to win that first game at Southport.
I will take Julius Geezy and the New Pal Dragons. By the way, tell the family if I'm pronouncing that wrong, please let me know. But I've heard them pronounce it, I believe. So,
and that's like I said, that's fine. I've heard it both ways, and I've always been, that's one of those names that I think whenever you tweet it, at least early on, and you're talking about it, that you should come with a little in parentheses, the little finale.
All right, the second game at approximately noon will be number 6 Crispus Attucks against number 8 Princeton. Crispus Attucks is 21-6. They beat number 11 Northview 57-46 for their 10th straight win and their 11th regional title. Of course, 7 of those came in the 50s under legendary Ray Crow. They beat Northview last week, but of course, they beat number 1 Cathedral in the sectional. Their last semi-state championship, their only semi-state championship, came in 2017. Since they rebooted, speaking of programs that it's good to see back, they've only won one semi-state championship. That was 2017 when they won the state championship. Princeton is 25-2. They won their 8th regional championship, their first since they won the state championship in 2009. They beat Jennings County 61-48. I think this one's going to be closer than most people think. I'm going to take Attucks by 4.
I'm going to agree with you with Attucks, and I was there. I watched. I was at Cambridge when they won in 2017 because I stayed to watch because Frankton had won the 2A state championship over Clay City that year, and I stayed down there because the team they beat in 3A that year was Twin Lakes, and Twin Lakes was led by the Bennington twins, Blake and Bryce, and their stepmom is a good friend of mine from Tipton, and I knew them, and of course, Blake helps his brother Cam now at Western as coach, and then there was a kid by the last name of Crab too that was pretty good, and
man, that team was legit.
Yeah, and I was impressed with Attucks, and Tipton's girls had Attucks on the schedule home and away for a few. They didn't. I don't think they did it the last 2 years, but before, and so the boys coach was down there sometimes, and I got to talk to him a few times, and he's a good coach. I think Attucks is well coached.
Yeah.
I like this Attucks team. I think they'll win too. I think they'll win that second game, and I think people are going to be in for a doozy of a game in the championship. And I'm not sure how many players Attucks graduated from last year, but I remember them watching them, and I think they beat Kokomo in the Hall of Fame. And I was really the thing about Attucks, Crispus Attucks, is they're so athletic, and they take advantage of that athleticism, and so I think the key in the championship will be if New Pal can control tempo, run when they want to run, but unless they want it to be a full out up and down game the whole time through. But I think Attucks has the athletes. Now, what might give New Pal a bit of an edge in the championship would be they play the first game. And but here's the thing, Attucks is right there in Indy. I mean, if you think, I mean, they could stay at the school.
So is New Pal.
I know they can stay at the school, but they can also go home or go hang out. And so can New Pal. I mean, so that's going to be interesting. Does New Pal get to the state championship? I don't. It's really a toss up because I thought earlier in the year they would get there in 3A, and then Attucks and what Attucks has done in the tournament. I don't know. I don't know. Hey, the Big O. He shows up. He goes to those big games, and I'm going to tell you. I think if you're an Attucks player or a coach, to look over and see the Big O there and that tradition, I just think it's got to be, inspiring. And so I will pick Attucks to make it back to the state for the first time since 2017.
For those of you unaware, Attucks ruled the 1950s in Indiana high school basketball.
Yes, they did.
Ray Crow and the Tigers.
Hey, I will say this. As a member of the media, we're not supposed to ask for autographs. I was at the Hall of Fame banquet. I think when Dick McIntosh got inducted, and Oscar Robertson was at the table right next to me. I talked to him, and I actually did a no-no, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, I'm not really."
There are times it's okay.
I said, I know I really shouldn't do this, but I said, Oscar, will you autograph the cover of my program for you? And he did, and it was a wonder. It was one of the best conversations. The two most memorable just conversations I've had with kind of like professionals that I've enjoyed is Oscar Robertson. It was fantastic, and Gail Sayers. Because he was at the county foundation golf tournament in Tipton one year, and I did a story on him. But I took my nephew with him, and we bought my nephew a football. And I made Zach ask him. I said, "You have to ask Gail for his autograph." But it was great because we sat there and we ate dinner with him, and it was great to interact and have that conversation before we did the interview. So when I'm talking about not on the job, just interviewing or talking to conversations with pro athletes. Oscar Robertson and Gail Sayers, and heck, those are two legends.
Most people don't know that Gail Sayers spent the last 50 years of his life in Indiana, living in Indiana, and I believe Dyer, Indiana, right outside of Gary.
I think so.
So, yeah. All right, sorry, Grant, your turn.
take Addicts, and here's why: is because they played a better schedule. It just
Ooh, New Pal's schedule is really good.
Yeah, but I'll never pick New Pal.
I think you said that last week.
That's right.
Oh, and I'll say it next week.
You
Probably.
can't be rational. All right, so I'm a lone wolf again. All
but
by
again-
myself.
Again, with Addicts is the fact that they've dominated their schedule. They played some really good teams, and just the athletes that they have there at Addicts that have come through, even going back to that 2017 team. They had a guy named Nike Sabande who went on and played at Pittsburgh and Miami of Ohio. He was really good. He was athletic. And they're very well coached. And Chris Hawkins, who's on his way to a Hall of Fame career. But, yeah, I like Addicts to cut down the nets there Saturday night at Southport Fieldhouse.
We are halfway through as we move to Class 2A in the North Semistate at Michigan City, the Wolves Den, where one Mr. Grant Shouse will be spending his day on Saturday. And the first game is at 11 a.m. our time. And it's number 1 Wapahani against number 6 Gary 21st Century. Wapahani is the defending champion. They're 27-1. They've actually won 3 consecutive regional championships after surprisingly having to come back in the fourth quarter to beat Western Boone 53-45. Number 6 Gary 21st Century is 21-6. This is their 5th regional championship, all in the last 10 years, of course. They've never won a semi-state. Oh, this is a tough one to pick, but I am going to take Gary 21st Century by 4 points.
I'm going to take Wapahani. I know that may sound like a shocker, but I'm going to take Wapahani.
It's not a shocker. Tough
they
one to pick.
shoot the basketball incredibly well. You know, I talked to Coach Henson there at Manchester today, and he said that they're the best three-point shooting team he's ever seen. You know, when they shoot, you know, upwards of 45% from three, the stats speak for himself. And they're incredibly well coached. Now they played, let's be honest, they played a weak schedule compared to what Gary 21 has played. But I just think Wapahani's going to come out more prepared. I think they're going to be ready to go. But then again, looking at the Western Boone game where they had to come back in that game, they trailed for a majority of it to a sub-500 Weibo team, and they came back and won. So that shows their poise, shows resilience, and able to win in tournament games. But I still like them to come out and beat Gary 21st Century because I have a hard time believing that Gary 21st Century is going to be able to shoot the way Wapahani does, and Wapahani just plays so incredibly smart with the basketball.
All right, I'm going to take Gary 21st Century, and here's why. Because I think they can be quick enough and have the athletes to get Wapahani in foul trouble. Flat out honest. And I mean, I think that's what you need to do, and then you have to play.
And Wapahani really only plays 5 kids.
Yes, and now by the same token, I guess Wapahani could get Gary 21st Century in foul trouble, but I bet their quickness, their athleticism, they might be able to get a little bit more deflections. I think Wapahani really doesn't like to get up and down the floor, and if Gary 21st Century can dictate that and make that tempo fast, I like Gary 21st Century. I do think Wapahani is is good and does shoot the 3-pointers very well, but I think they're going to play a team that not having Andrews this year like they did last year is probably going to.
They do have an Andrews.
I know, but it's not. Yes.
All right, so 2 say Gary 21st Century. This time Grant is all by himself. All right, I think we're all going to have the same pick in this one. It's number 4 Manchester against Jimtown. Manchester's 24-2. They've won 22 of their last 23 games. The only loss was to Mechanical. It's their second regional championship ever, the first one in 1994 under the great Mo Smedley. They beat Tipton 54-36 to win the regional. All 3 of their postseason games have been by 18 points or more. Jimtown is 17-10. They upset Westview 56-40 for their 3rd regional championship ever. Their first one since 2004 when they won the Class 2A state championship. A game is scheduled for approximately 1 o'clock. And I say Manchester by 18.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Manchester too, but I actually think it's going to be a closer game than we think. Jimtown is probably the best team, at least maybe not on paper, but I think watching them on film, they're the best team that Manchester's gone through in the tournament. They have a really big kid, 6'6" inside, who will match up on Benton, I think, really well. I do like Manchester to come out of that one and win, but I like Manchester to win that one only by about 10. And I'm sticking with 10 this time. I like Manchester by 10. I think it'll be competitive. I think Jimtown will keep it close. And if you watch their game against Westview last week, Jimtown that is just what an incredible, just absolutely phenomenal, incredible start they got off to. They were up like 14-0 at one point. It was like,
wow.
Or maybe it was like 16-0, and they couldn't miss. And they were so stingy defensively. Their defense was really, really good. They're averaging, they're allowing only about 45, 46 points a game, but they're only scoring at about 52 points per game. They're a young team, but they've gotten hot at the right time. They've won 7 in a row coming into this game, and their last loss was to Tippy Valley back on Valentine's Day. They lost in overtime. This is a team that has played 3 overtime games down in the back half of the season, and went 2-1 in those overtimes. So we know that they can play and maybe win close games. But I still like Manchester just because they're so tough on offense. They're really kind of hard to guard at sometimes. They can shoot the rock, and they can play really suffocating defense. I like Manchester by 10 in that second game against Jimtown.
I like Manchester too. I think it'll be double digits. I think having, I talked to you about this at the regional. I think if you have a true big, and then if you have, especially then if you are blessed enough to have 2 bigs, but I think you also have to have a 3-point shooter, at least one, to go with that. And I think Manchester's vulnerable. Just like I think they could be vulnerable to a team that has a lot of 3-point shooters. Or, what I like about Manchester, what I think makes them so good offensively, truthfully, is Gavin Benton. His ability to pass the ball is really, really, really good because he's a forward. I mean, he doesn't play guard or anything, but to be honest with you, Grant, as a passer, he makes me think of Derek Elston. Derek Elston's most underrated thing he did was pass the ball out of double teams because he didn't pass to the first window. He often didn't pass to the second window. He found the guy in the third window who was open or cutting to the basket. That is what Benton does very well. If you double him, he knows where to get rid of the ball. And the fact that he then has a really good point guard and Hendricks, who can knock down shots, is good. But the player that's the key is Talon Torpy. I mean, outside, cutting, he just gives them a third dimension. I shouldn't say a third dimension. He gives them a legitimate third scoring threat. I know people might look at his stats and say, they go in the region, he's only averaging 9 points a game. Well, all right, he may be, but those 9 points are probably all going to come on big opportunities. I do like Manchester. I think they win that. I do think they win that second game. And I think it will be by double figures. The only way it's not is if they have to come from behind, which I think they can. But if Jimtown has has a 3-point shooter, or if somehow they get Betten, if they would get Betten in early foul trouble, their big could get Betten in foul trouble, then I think Manchester, then they become vulnerable because they do need Betten.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think some significant things for Manchester would have to go wrong for them to maybe lose that first game.
The championship game at the Wolves' Den is scheduled for 8:30 our time, and my pick is Gary 21st Century, Grant.
It's really hard for me to pick against Manchester, so I'm not going to. I'm going to pick them, but my counterclaim, and if we're going with what I thought in the first game with Wapahani, Manchester's going to have to play really good defense and able to take away the three-point shooting. 47% as a team from the three is Wapahani. They're just so good. And this Camden Bell's shooting 51% from three. Zitgraf is shooting 54% from three, Greg. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
They come out of the womb shooting in Selma.
Manchester has, along with Wapahani, has the guns. They have the big fella, and you're going to have two really good coaches in that game. I like Manchester to come out on top and upset number one Wapahani.
Well, I will say this about if that is the matchup, and this is what I think Gary's 21st Century can do also to beat Wapahani. When you have a good three-point shooting team, you want to run them off the three-point line. You'd rather them, especially if you have somebody that can rim protect, you'd rather them have to put the ball on the floor. You close out hard and fast and make them drive by you and hit pull-up mid-range jumpers. And people think, well, that's easy. But that hitting those mid-range jumpers, that's becoming a lost art in basketball. Everybody likes the threes or the fancy drive, and that mid-range shot, people don't work on it like they used to. And so that said, I would like, if it is Manchester Wapahani, I think Manchester could do the same thing too. I think they could run Wapahani. That's what I would do. I'd run them off that, make him put the ball on the floor, because then you got Betten in there. And he's athletic and he can block shots, and I think that's what I would do. And I think also a key is to, and Manchester does do this because they did it against Tipton the other day, is mix it up. Throw man-to-man, zones, press, not press, half-court pressure, full court. I think you have to mix it up against a team like Wapahani. Tipton was playing Wapahani really well last year until Bell got hot, because Tipton decided that's who they would let beat them, and he was able to do it. I didn't think Tipton's defense last year was as good as it necessarily was this year, because I think those kids all knew they had so much offense that, a lot of times they could outscore somebody, and they couldn't Wapahani because they didn't make shots. But
so who's your pick?
But it's not. I don't have Wapahani winning that first game. I have Gary 21st Century and then Manchester. And I won't be surprised if Manchester wins. I would love to see it for them, but I think it'll be Gary 21st Century. So I just think that.
Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
If they'll have they'll have a little bit more rest than Manchester, especially if that second game would happen to be close. And if Jimtown is, which they will be, they'll be a more physical team. So it's going to take a little bit out of the legs. And I think that, because, Tipton turned Manchester over a little bit the other day. And they don't have, so I think Gary 21st Century might have the ability to turn Manchester over. Not a lot, but enough that it could hurt. And I also think they may have somebody that have the potential, the athlete, the whatever, get Betten in a little bit of foul trouble. And if either Betten or Hendricks are in foul trouble, Manchester gets hurt.
Class 2A South Semistate is at the incredible Hatchet House in Washington. It is number 3 Park Heritage against Forest Park. A lot of parks in this one. Park Heritage is 25-4. They beat Centerville 47-41. Told you guys that would be close. To win their 4th regional title in the last 5 years. But their only semi-state championship came in 2021. Forest Park is 20-6. They upset number 2 South Ripley 56-53. Anybody want to brag about that one?
I picked Forest Park.
Yes, you did. That's why. I need you to be a little more boastful. Come on, Grant. It's back-to-back regional.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, maybe you guys don't know what you're talking about. No,
That's right. That's right.
I'm just kidding. You guys know.
Back-to-back regional championships for Forest Park. They've won 8 in the last 23 years. They've also won 4 semi-states and 2 state championships since 2003. Their last semi-state was in 2018. This game is scheduled for 10:30 at the Hatchet House. And now Greg is a believer. He's taking the Forest Park Rangers by 3.
Oh, I like Park Heritage to win that first game. Forest Park, to give them credit, where they played from behind. They actually went on a run. I think they were on a 14-0 run, 17-0 run at one point to begin the second half against South Ripley. They had to come from behind, and then they won 56-53. South Ripley did not impress me, being one of the top teams in the state. And, they were 23-2, but their schedule just was not good. Whereas Forest Park's kind of in a weird area of the state down there where they can kind of get some of that Evansville schedule and play some of those teams. And they're not going to have to go that far to play Hatchet House. Whereas Park Heritage has been there before with their coach, Rich Shelsky. His son, Trey Shelsky, is a really good player, a nice shooting guard for them. I like Park Heritage to win that one. You look at some of the teams they played, where they played Mooresville this year, Evansville Central, Zionsville, Sheridan, of course, we know was a decent team. They beat Plainfield earlier in the year. They beat Centerville, but you're right. Centerville kept it close. They beat Terre Haute South. They beat Linton Stockton in the final game of the regular season, or in the second to final game of the regular season. That should have been a good game, and there's a potential they could match up with them in the championship on Saturday night. I just like Park Heritage to beat Forest Park.
I like Park.
Sorry,
one? I had to say that. I take Park.
You'll take Park.
Because if I take Park, then hey,
you're gonna be right.
I'm gonna be right. I think it'll be Park. I'm gonna agree with Grant. I'm gonna trust him. I don't know much about either team, but I think they beat Sheridan pretty handily. Am I not right?
No, it's close.
Oh, was it close?
Yeah, it was 66-58.
Okay. I will still take Park. I'll still take Park Heritage. Both teams come in with experience of being there. So, all right. I always like it when I'm out as a sports editor and people come and say, "Well, who you got tonight?" Well, or who's going to win? I always say the team that scores the most points. But that's why I kind of do that with the Park. I'll go with Park Heritage. I have no idea what the margin will be. I think it's going to be a close game. Hey, it may be a game that comes down to it might be a game like Frankton and Tipton, that comes down to the very last second.
In the second game to follow, which actually it says 12:15 p.m., which is weird. Number 11, Linton Stockton against University. Linton Stockton is 22-6, won their second regional championship in the last 3 years, 5th in the last 13 years, after beating number 8 Providence 38-32 on Saturday, a very Providence score. They have won 3 semi-states in the last 13 years, including 2 years ago, but they've never won a state championship. University is 19-9. They started the season 2-5, so they had a really good second half. They beat Triton Central. I don't think any of us picked University. 44-43 to win their second regional championship ever. Their last one came in 2013 when they lost to Borden, a game that I covered. And I'm going to take Linton Stockton by 5.
Yeah, I'm going to take Linton Stockton to win that one too. They're tournament tested, well coached with Matt Britton. I don't know much. I honestly, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I don't know anything about any of these teams. So I'm just going to go with
Don't say
what
that.
my mind tells me, and it's Linton Stockton.
Never say that.
But hey, I like honesty. I think you build listeners when you admit when you prove to be honest.
We are kind of guessing on some of these in the South. Let's just be honest.
We are. I mean, we are. We don't. And part of it is there's just not accessibility to see him play.
But I'm pretty good at reading the results.
You are, and you are more familiar with teams and programs down there.
That's right.
And their history.
I've been all over the state.
And the history than what Grant and I are. I'm going to take Linton Stockton. One of it is because isn't Linton Stockton part of the what was the team that made it to the state, the tiny L&M.
Yes.
L&M.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of like I like Linton Stockton.
Oliphant and
yeah. And, I can't think of
it went to IU, right? One of them went to
Jeff Oliphant.
Yeah, and I can't remember the other one, but it was.
Yeah.
And I know Randy Hugler was down there, and he covered, and he talked about what a good team that was, and I'm going to take Linton Stockton. I like it. I know they have a good girls program, and their head coach played in the boys program several years ago.
Great program.
I will take Linton Stockton. To me, it's amazing how they've sustained.
Yeah. One of those in the South that's just kind of good at everything.
Yeah, and for a small
Brownstown,
school, they haven't
Silver
really
Creek.
seemed to gone through the cycles. Now, I do think it's easier to have that sustain in the South than it is up in Central Indiana because there's just so many. The competition is so hard, But but I take Linton.
All right, the championship game is at 7:30, and if it is Linton and Forest Park like I picked, those two teams are familiar with each other, and I'm going to take Forest Park to win this whole thing, Grant.
You're stunning. I'm going to take Linton Stockton to win the whole thing and beat Park Heritage that night. I think they got a revenge in them.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Grant. I should take Park Heritage so that way we each would have a different team.
We haven't done that yet.
Yeah, to come out of the semi-state. But if it is Park Heritage and it is Linton, then I definitely believe it's going to be Linton because I think they will avenge that game. I think it's hard. It's always hard to beat a team a second or a third time, and especially a second time in less than a month.
We move to Class A, and we will start at the North Semi-State at Lafayette Jeff the Crawley Center. Very cool name for that arena. Very cool arena.
It is. It is. I covered a Class A Semi-State there once when Tri-Central went there, led by Grayson Flitner.
The first game is at 10 a.m., and it's number 7 Couts against Monroe Central. Couts is 23-4. They won their third regional on 5-year Saturday, beating Tri-County 56-45. Their only semi-state championship came in 2021. Very nice program, especially recently. Monroe Central is 19-6. Their second regional championship ever Saturday, beating Daleville 66-58. And my pick is going to be Monroe Central by 2 points. I think they've got the best player, and I like their chances. Michelle.
I'm going to take Couts. I will pick Couts to win that game. And I'll say Couts by 6-10.
Wow.
6-10 points. So
Grant?
Greg, believe it or not, I'm gonna agree with you on this one. I don't know why I think Couts on paper is the better team than Monroe Central, but Monroe Central's been playing really good basketball as of late. And I'm gonna take the Golden Bears to upset Couts and move into that semi-state title game.
Michelle is all by herself. All right, we move to...
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
Greg, who sings that song?
In game number 2, it'll be number 3 Clinton Prairie in their first semi-state ever against number 11 Triton. Clinton Prairie is 24-2. They've won 16 games in a row, beating Lafayette Central Catholic in overtime, 58-55. Michelle can brag a little bit about that one. And they are the top-ranked team in this semi-state. Triton is 23-4. They won their 7th regional championship and their first since 2013 by beating Lakewood Park 63-40. That game will be at about noon. And I say the team that Grant and I picked from the beginning, Clinton Prairie, I'm picking them by 15.
I think this game, Clinton Prairie will win, and I do believe it could be by double digits. I don't care if there's just some places and some programs and some nemesis that it does not matter, because when you get to a small community like Clinton Prairie, a lot of their players, their parents, it's been tradition. So they grew up with that, that thing of Central, just living in their head a little bit. So that's why I thought that game would be close, just because now,
You're exactly right.
And if they had both been in the Hoosier Conference and Central Catholic, then not Hoosier Conference, but the Hoosier Heartland, and being in the same sectional for some years and different things, I would have probably gone with you and Grant.
Yeah.
But I just knew too much of the history of that. That said, I like Clinton Prairie because now their nemesis is out of the way. Again, well coached. It's Peck and Paul, and they play. Cliff will tell you that. Cliff felt very fortunate for Tipton when they beat Clinton Prairie, because he said it was, and he's right. It's a really good Clinton Prairie team, and they play. They can play junk defenses, and junk defenses are very hard to prepare for. Wouldn't you not agree, Grant?
Oh, 1,000,000%. Yeah, Clinton Prairie, no question. We stuck by him throughout. I'm going to take Clinton Prairie to win both games on Saturday there at Lafayette Jeff and punch their ticket to the state championship.
Michelle?
I think if Couts wins and Clinton Prairie, I think it'll be a really good. I think it'll be a really good game, and I think it will be. I think it'll be closer than Prairie's game with Triton. It's great because neither team is. I don't think. Well, I guess Couts does have the thing because they have won a semi-state title, so they've been there. So that could be a little bit of advantage to Couts in the championship game. And the other thing I think will be Prairie's going to really want and need, I think, that game against Triton to be by double figures and not have to expend a lot of energy, because their McGrew and their shooters are going to have to, because they're not real deep either. A lot of times Class A teams aren't super deep, and it becomes a contest of legs in the championship. But I don't know. I'm gonna pick Clinton Prairie. I would love to see them get there, and the Hoosier Heartland Conference to be represented in the state finals. And I just think what a great thing if it does happen. Peck and Paul's brother, their Kokomo took the Cats to the state championship in 4A a few years ago, and it'd be neat to see brother do that for Clinton Prairie.
And the championship game, by the way, is at 8 o'clock at the Crowley Center, and I am taking Clinton Prairie to win it as well.
Well, one other thing I want to point, how about maybe this is destined for Clinton Prairie. Think about this. Clinton Central, Frankfort, Lafayette. They play in all those three gyms all during during the regular season.
It's kind of been a little unfair.
Or if they're haven't played at Lafayette Jeff this year, it's still just it's a 30-minute. It might not even be a 30-minute trip. It's going to depend on traffic, but that's just how they've been blessed with the sites of their tournaments.
And our last semi-state, Class A South semi-state at Seymour at Scott Gymnasium, another classic gym in Indiana. And it starts at 10 a.m. with maybe the most competitive game of the day, at least the one that I've gone back and forth on. Number 2 Hauser against number 4 Orleans. Hauser's 25-3. Orleans 23-5. Hausers won 12 games in a row and beat Indianapolis Lutheran 70-52 in the regional. Their first regional championship since winning state in 2006. Number 4, Orleans beat Christian as 23-4. They beat Christian Academy 56-47 to win the regional. Their second ever. Their first win was 2003. Their first since 2003. They've never won a semi-state. And I'm going to take Orleans. I don't know who I'm going to take. Whoever I do take, though, I'm going to pick to win the whole thing, and I'll just take Orleans by 1.
I'm gonna go against you. I'm gonna take Hauser. I believe I was the one to pick Orleans, or I think Grant and I picked Orleans against. Did you pick? I know I picked Orleans.
I picked Orleans. Grant picked Christian Academy, and it was a close game most of the game. Grant.
Yeah, but I know I picked Orleans, but I like Hauser. I don't know why. I kind of like. I think part of it is
both
kind of like the
have been
way
so good. All
they
year.
are. They have, and I just kind of, I just think it's just Hauser. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it rolls off my tongue a little bit easier.
The Jets.
I like it. That way. There you go. You got the Jets. I'm gonna take Hauser. I think it will be close though. What a great game! This might be the bet of the first game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The first games. This might be one of the best ones in the state as far as.
I think so.
Back and forth and competitive, really competitive.
I'm going to take Orleans. I just think they're finally destined.
So many great teams over the year.
Yeah, they have, and even in the last few years, they're very well coached with Tom Bradley, and
yep.
They just won their first regional since 2003, and
with Trey Bradley.
Won their first sectional in 10 years this year. I just think they're kind of destined to get there to play for a chance to go to Gamebridge.
All right, Liberty Christian takes on number 1 Clay City. Liberty Christian is 19-8. They beat North Decatur 68-48. It was never really close. They've won all 4 of their postseason games by at least 16 points. This is their back-to-back regional champions and 5th in the last 12 years. Of course, they were a state champion in 2016. Clay City is 25-2. They came from behind to beat Northeast Du Bois for their 24th straight win, 51-42. Guys, I'm going to take Liberty Christian by 4 points.
I don't know much about Clay City, but I do know this about Liberty Christian. I know they're young, but I think they'll win. I told you this. The thing I like about Liberty Christian, and I've seen it, is the ability they have to score a bunch of points in such little time. I mean, they can go on a 9-0 run. They can go on a 18-4 run in less than 2 minutes. They can just, because of that press, that pressure can be debilitating, and they have athletes. And I will say this: if you're going to get Liberty Christian, get them this year.
That's right.
Get them this year.
Although they've had a couple seniors who've been pretty valuable.
Yes,
to them,
they have. But
they're sophomores, though. They're most talented players.
Yes, and get them. But I'll take Liberty Christian to win this game, and I'm actually going to take them a little bit more than 4.
I'm going to take Clay City to beat Liberty Christian. They're 25-1. They've played a favorable schedule. So is Liberty Christian. Of course, playing, kind of dipping into the Indianapolis area. They played Lawrence Central, played Cathedral. But
Brownsburg.
Brownsburg. Clay City's 25-1. They haven't lost since December 7th. They've won 24 games in a row. And, this is a team that beat Bloomfield, who's the top 5 team in the state. Beat them twice, beat them in the sectional semifinal, who was, ranked number 5. They beat them twice during the year. This was a team that beat Linton Stockton that we picked to come out of this.
That's right.
Picked to come out of the South in 2A. Clay City was last in the semi-state in 2015. Which is actually, they are featured in a movie called Kings of Indiana, a documentary about Bar Reeves basketball, Heritage and their season 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago when that documentary / movie kind of was shot. And Bar Reeve edged out Clay City in the regional at Seymour in that film, 56-54. I like Clay City to exercise the demons from exactly 10 years ago and win both games on Saturday to go to Gainbridge Fieldhouse for the 1A state title game to play Clinton Prairie.
The championship game is at 8 o'clock, and you brought up Bar Reeve, Grant. Part of the reason that Orleans doesn't have more sectional, regional, and semi-state championships is because they have been in a sectional with Bar Reeve and Lagodi for the last 20 years, which seems
North Davies.
And North Davies seems almost unfair, but this is the year of the Bulldog. And I believe that Orleans is going to win this game, and it's going to be Orleans against Clinton Prairie for the Class A state championship.
I've got Hauser winning the first game. I do believe the winner of this semi-state comes from that first game. I've got Hauser doing it. I believe it's going to be Hauser. So it'll be Clinton Prairie and Hauser, and oh, what a fun state finals that could be. So I got Hauser.
I got Clay City representing the South.
Yep. All right. So that finally we have one where we all three have somebody different, and it's the last one. I love it. Thank you guys so much. This has been so much fun. It's always fun talking with you guys, whether you're live or on the phone. Enjoy the rest of this NCAA tournament game, Grant. We will talk to you very soon.
Thanks so much to Grant and Michelle for doing that. Spending a long time with us at Stage 22 on Wednesday evening. And thank you for listening. If you'd like to see the Central Indiana Sports Report continue to grow and thrive, please share these segments with your friends and family. We thank you in advance. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love Susie.